Where have you just come from? The seeker replied, the city. Where are you now? The seeker said, the mountains. I have a question to ask you. If you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave. Now then, when you left the city was lacking you. When you came to the mountains had you extra. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent. If you are an extra in the mountains, then there is something outside of mind. What have you learned?
What have I learned? What I have learned to basically see things, feel things, and not run away from it, especially the negative feelings. For example, this weekend, I was procrastinating on creating a PowerPoint on something that I worked at. And I could literally see that I was trying to avoid it. Like I wanted to go into an auto mode by indulging on something, be it that may YouTube or video games or anything. And
anything to avoid
it was
the task at
painful.
hand. Okay.
So yeah, it was painful mostly because not as bad I would argue, but throughout the day I was reminded that I'm just avoiding things. Earlier I wouldn't even notice these things. I would just go out and start watching YouTube or something.
There's another way to live your life with a lot less suffering and a lot more productivity. So
Yeah.
I think it's the Sufis, Idris Shah in particular, that he doesn't do it directly, but let me do it directly. I'm an ex-psychiatrist. There are two kinds of people. The kind of people who eat the dessert first and then eat their meal, and the kinds of people who wait till after dinner to eat their dessert. Now, if you're one of the former people who wants to eat your dessert before or wants your gratification first and then do the work, you'll have a much more miserable life. You'll be less productive, you'll suffer more, your creativity will suffer. Everything suffers if you have that animal mentality, because that's the mentality of any animal, right? They want the sugar, they want the apple, they want the fruit. They want the meat. Dogs, horses, pigs, all these creatures, they live like that. But if a man lives like that, then he gets the same results as the animals, which is, except it's worse because the man has a mind. So if you want to make yourself miserable in life, just build the habit of procrastination. That's a surefire way to make sure you both fail and you suffer and your life sucks. Right? It's really very, very simple. So you have to decide, are you more of the porcine variety or the... See, I love all animals, so it's not an insult to be compared to a pig or a dog but I understand that in some places it is an insult. So I'm just saying it's the difference between animality, as the Buddhists call it, the Tibetan Buddhists, and humanity. And so again, what you're learning is great. You're learning that if you go down the route of procrastination, of trying to get gratified first, get paid first, and then do the work, all of that is a surefire way to fail in this life and to make yourself miserable. I'm just speaking from a lifetime of watching people. People who used to play.
But
go ahead.
yeah, so a follow-up to that, but whatever work that I am procrastinating, right? What if, like, for me, it was creating a PPT, right? And I presented that PowerPoint today, and I was unable to answer a few questions. Basically, I blanked out. And it was kind of one of the reasons why I was procrastinating on creating this PPT in the first place, because my mind doesn't want to. So what can one do in this case when it has seen in past that this activity has only created pain?
So you want to learn to ride a bicycle but never fall down. Is that what you're asking?
That's, yeah, even I
Okay.
was saying that to myself.
All right. Well, you just stay in the
Yeah.
bottom of the corporate ranks. You never progress. You never learn anything. You just sit down there at the bottom and suck your thumb and be miserable. A lot of people do. But of course, you got to learn, especially in a corporate environment. You're going to have to take some bumps.
Yes.
So it's a free choice. You can fail or not fail. You can just decide. Well, I'm one of the sheep that sit at the bottom, and I eat whatever's left over from the other people who are rising up. That's your choice. You can do that. A lot of people do. Most people do. But if you want to suffer and not learn and just, I mean, literally suffer all your life, and then what happens is they end up blaming other people or resenting other people or saying, well, why should he have more? But deep down inside, they know that's because he worked and he didn't procrastinate and he took his bumps, he took his lumps. You're like a boxer who wants to fight but doesn't want to get hit. It's nonsensical.
Yeah.
So you decide. No one else can decide for you. You want to suffer, you want to be
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, I was basically saying the same thing, and it reminded me of,
Okay, now you heard two
I
people say
think
it.
most people live, yeah, like most people live a life of desperate,
Quiet desperation.
quiet desperation.
Most men live lives of quiet desperation, and women too.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the second question, and it was
By the way,
like,
effort and energy and discipline, those things are all paramitas.
yes.
All right.
So this is something related to believing in thoughts related to past or future. Like right now, I live a low resolution and limiting life because I believe in my thoughts. And because I believe in my thoughts,
Right now,
any th-
right now your
there are
life is
certain
low
thoughts going,
resolution and low quality.
at least from my
Right
at least from
now,
my
right now,
perspective.
hey, right now,
There are certain thoughts going in my head about past and future, and by low resolution, I don't mean bad per se. It's like anything that I'm sensing, it goes through as thoughts rather than seeing it for what they are. And
example.
example, the laptop that I'm using, I'm just using it, categorizing it as a laptop, and it's useful for communication purposes, but it it doesn't make sense if I'm thinking about things myself. Not necessarily thinking.
You want to clarify?
Yeah. The like the what I was thinking was the moment I perceive the infinite complexity of the presence, my reliance on the thought goes away because, like as Rupert said, that infinite cannot perceive the finite and finite cannot perceive the infinite.
Now, wait a minute. I've heard this. Are you sure that's not speculation?
It is speculation.
Okay, well, we don't deal in speculation here. There's no
infinite
speculation here. We don't deal in speculation. So in every present moment, seriously, speculation is for other people. There's no reason to speculate in this work.
No, I'm not. So, what I mean is, I can prove that an infinite cannot perceive finite. It's like
Oh, really? Show me.
it's like asking for the probability of choosing an infinitely precise number between 0 and 1.
So
Because
say
there are
that again.
infinite
Say that again
numbers
slowly.
between-
Say that again slowly, because this is a big conclusion you're drawing.
Yeah, so it's like infinite cannot perceive the finite. I
The
feel
infinite
it's like
cannot
asking,
perceive. So say that in English. Don't use math. Say it in English. What you believe now. You're saying God cannot perceive your thought. You're saying God does not take part in your perceptions, cannot perceive your perceptions, cannot apprehend your perceptions. That's what you're saying, is it not?
I'm saying it's insignificant.
Well, that's very, very different, isn't it? That's not what Rupert Spira is saying, is it? Insignificant is totally relevant, relative. I mean, a mole on your hand may be insignificant to you, but to a dermatologist, it may be the most significant thing on your body. It depends on your perspective. So let's get this clear, because you're speculating, as far as I can tell. So let me hear the speculation that you got from somewhere or another.
Yeah, so it was basically what's the space or occupied by a single point in this universe.
You can answer that.
It depends what the single point is. If I mean that single point is infinitely precise, or more specifically, smaller than the smallest thing in this universe.
How much space does
It's
this planet Earth take up in reality?
With respect to what? This whole universe?
With respect
okay,
to
it's
reality,
not-
to the rest of reality. Okay, this may be a little bit advanced, but there's a big difference. Okay, now if you just use relativity and just use it all the way, what will you see? Just use relativity.
I did not get that. What do you mean by use relativity
Okay,
to calculate?
if we call this tall, we'll have to call this short, right?
Yeah,
If we call this wide, we'll have to call this narrow.
yeah,
That's relativity. It's not that complex.
yeah.
But let's
Okay.
say, so we've decided this is tall, right? Now what are we going to do about this? This is taller.
Yeah, but these are just labels. Yeah,
No,
these are just labels.
they are, yeah, but the relativity of size, the relativity of duration, you're saying that's a speculation?
Not a speculation. I'm just saying those are labels.
Okay,
Those
it's a
are
it
just
is a label.
things.
So you were telling me about a point, and you were going to describe to me the size of a point. What kind of point are you talking about? Let's use the tip of a pencil, okay? How big is that?
Okay. It's pretty big compared to an atom.
Yes. So it's enormous compared to an
But
atom.
this-
It's gargantuan compared to an atom. So when you say something is insignificant, you should know what you're doing there. You're making a judgment.
Yeah, shortest. Basically, I'm making a measurement, so that's labeling things.
So let's get back to the original
Labeling.
question. What's the question?
Now, No, that breaks the thing. I don't think that makes sense.
Well, but wait a minute. You were saying something that you heard from Rupert Spira, apparently, on YouTube. And then you were saying something about how the infinite cannot know the finite. Remember?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like for me, it was basically infinite would be the way, and until and unless I
It'd be
actually
Buddha,
know
the
that,
way. Okay, let me make sure I got it straight. Be Buddha, it'd be the way, it'd be God, it'd be reality, it'd be the other shore, it would be truth, etc. And you're saying those things cannot know the human, but you're saying they cannot know something. What can they not know?
something finite, something mind that says, I'm this, I'm that.
What
I
if they
can't be
created a
that.
mind? What if they created a mind that worked that way? Could they perceive it then? Or apprehend it then?
What do you mean by creating a mind? As in the
As in a
one
human
who is
mind. As in a human mind.
yeah.
It sounds like what you're trying to tell me is that God cannot know your mind. He cannot know your perceptions, or she cannot know your perceptions. She cannot know your reality. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, from that looks of it, yeah. And
Okay, so that's what
that's a
Rupert Spira
speculation
is
because I
saying.
don't
All right, if that's really what Rupert Spira is saying, then that gives you a perfect excuse to find out whether he's speculating. Is he just resuscitating some ancient Hindu doctrine, or is he?
Yeah.
Where does he get that from?
Yep, I'll look into this.
Because he's just limited the power of God. That's risky business. Now he may be citing the Bhagavad Gita or the some other Hindu scripture or something like that, but it's still speculation. And we don't deal with speculation here. If you want to speculate, you can go anywhere. I mean, seriously. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, some people live their lives in entire speculation. Of course, it's going to get more difficult with the AIs and stuff. And these questions are vitally important to humans. But let's stay away from speculation if we might. Okay?
Yep. Yes.
Next question.
Next question. What do people mean when they ask about nature of something, like nature of time, nature of thoughts, nature of fire?
Which person?
The book, the author of the book.
Which book?
And this.
We should get to practice questions. I mean, we can go on and on. I can tell you right now that what they mean by it is going to, I mean, what did the author mean, or what did the translator mean, or what did the culture at that epoch mean? I mean, what year was the book written originally?
Yeah. That I had one from the instant Zen itself.
You're going to get much higher yield by asking questions about your own personal practice as opposed to finding out what someone from the 10th or 11th century, how they were using words. But okay, let's do it real quick. What page?
Yeah.
Because nature is sometimes a synonym for essence. Nature is sometimes a synonym for other things. Nature sometimes describes, the birds and the trees and the clouds and the fields. So it all depends on context. It all depends on who's speaking, to whom it is she or he speaking, what they mean. And then you have to remember you're dealing with a translation, even an enlightened translation. So you got to think. It'd be much better if you asked me a question that you have about your situation than, parsing words from the 12th century, although those can be very valuable too. So nature can mean many, many different things is the answer.
Okay, I will try to keep it a bit concrete next time. But yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I was doing this week was an experience when I cut off my past and future. I started protesting that I'll be in danger if I do so. But a bit later, there was this feeling that I'll be fine in the present. Like if I were to
all your
die,
thoughts. Are you aware at the time that all your thoughts of the past or the future are all occurring in there's only one moment that exists, that has ever existed.
Yeah.
So whenever you say future or past, you're just talking about thoughts in this moment, this eternal moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So then what's the problem?
Of past like it was like the experience was like if I were to die, this awareness will still exist in some form. Like I don't need to worry of
what were to die?
My body.
Okay. What's your body really made of? Really?
Matter.
And what's matter really made of? What's matter really made of?
I would go with particles, but...
Okay, and then what are the particles made of?
We can keep going on, but...
Yeah, we get down to quantum waves, quantum field theory, so on and so forth, but then ultimately there's nothing there, my friend. Just use your brain. Why do you think people are saying, they're wrong, they're very wrong, but why people are saying, we live in a simulation? They're discovering what we've known all along. We've known this for at least 3,000 years, probably double that at least. Guessing. So what you're afraid is going to die, it never really existed in any meaningful way. I know that's probably harsh, but you're a grown man, right? Just face the facts. You're in a dream. How can a dream character die? Now, we want to go through a progressive, because I don't want to scare you, and I don't want you to get embroiled in things that are too deep for you at the moment. And so it's really important to go through this progression. And there's a few people on this planet historically that have been really, really good at that. That would be the Buddhists in general, and then the Tibetan Buddhists also. The Mahayana and the Vajrayana. Not Zen. Zen's not there to help you grow up and face the facts. Zen's not good at that. And then we have the Sufis in the Abrahamic traditions. And not all the Sufis. There's millions and millions and millions and millions of Sufis. This is a particular branch called the Naqsbandi, as represented by Idris Shah. So that's a very specific little narrow, but incredibly powerful branch of Sufism, if you ask people who know. And so it was that same, the ancestors of these folks, the Naqsbandi, that put together the flower ornament, right? So depending on the age, these women and men take on different labels. Like in one epoch, they'd be called Buddhists. In another one, they'd be called Muslims. In another one, they might be called something else, Zenists or whatever. So keep that in mind. Okay? Now let's get back. I wanted to put that little lesson out because we're so ignorant in the West. But okay, so where were we? What were we talking about?
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, your fear of death. Well, to take care of your fear of death, you need to discover whether you were ever really born, and what were you born of, and what are you made of now. It's very hard to accept that the reality is what it is. I mean, believe me, the physicists are having a hell of a time too. But we've known this all along. And the AI is going to make it really, really obvious too. So the real you, the reality body, as they call it in Buddhism, the reality body is not this corpse that we're dragging around. But see, that's kind of advanced. And so first you need to understand emptiness. And to do that, the best text is this one. Have I recommended this one to you yet?
Yeah, I have been reading, but
okay. Have you gotten to emptiness? Have you gotten to emptiness?
I haven't reached that.
All right. So it will open your mind. It will enrich your mind. It's like plows your mind. It fertilizes your mind. It rains water on your mind. It opens your mind. And then you're able to understand these things much, much, much better. Much better. And so I recommend keep reading that and keep a special eye on emptiness. And then if you want, you can ask the AI, well, ask ChatGPT 4. Mm-hmm. What do Buddhists mean by emptiness? And then you take all of that and then you contemplate it on your own. This is the important part. The important part is your own contemplation. Only then will you get understanding. And so all the Zen guys are doing, they're just beating everybody over the head. Pow, pow, pow. You gotta do the work yourself. You gotta contemplate this to where you understand it. I mean, I could go right now, I could tell you, it's lack of independent existence, it's interdependent origination, it's lack of temporal permanence, it's lack of inherent materiality, it's all these different things. I could list them all. But none of them are going to help you own it. To own it, you have to contemplate it. And it takes most people, it takes a bit of time. Other people, it's like that. It took me years. Well, not years, but for it to fully sink in took years. And so this personal effort is what gives you the personal reward. Otherwise, you're trying to cheat your way through the Dharma, and that most certainly will not work. Or as the Christians would put it, God sees everything. Right? So if you're insincere or you're fake, you're going to get exactly what you pay for with sincerity. And there's no way around this. This is truth we're talking about. This is reality. This is the Tao. This is the way. This is the Buddha. This is Allah. This is Jesus as the Father, as one. So there's no place here for clowning around or trying to be clever or trying to cut corners. All you do is cut your own nose off. Okay, sir? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these books are just jumping off points for your own contemplation. And the talks that you see on YouTube or what we do here, again, these are just places where you start. Now, I really like that you started with a really good but profound question, difficult question. But the problem was you hadn't contemplated it. It's just Eckhart Tolle says this, or Rupert Spira says this, or this guy says this, and that's not going to work. Okay, sir?
Yeah.
All right. Practice questions.
Yeah. One question though regarding the flower ornament, who are the enlightening beings?
Oh, enlightening beings is direct translation of Bodhisattva. One of the beauties of this text is it's written in real English. If you go through other texts, translations, they're like 85, 90% English, but then when they get to a word that's too difficult for them to understand because they're not enlightened, they put in some Indian word. God bless them. And sometimes it has like 8 syllables, 9 syllables, and the Westerners goes, huh? Who is this Indian God? So as much as possible, he uses English. So an enlightening being is a bodhisattva. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's exactly that. Now, you'll often see in the West, we use the word saint or we use the word angel, right? A bodhisattva is also those things. Although, but it doesn't have the sanctimoniousness of saint. And so you don't know it now, but there's billions of Buddha worlds. And at this point, what you really need is the flower ornament, frankly, because you're still caught up in relativity, and you haven't understood emptiness fully, and you're also still stuck in a Western materialist reductionism, which is really going to lead you nowhere, as people are finding out, left and right. Okay, sir. Whee!
Yeah, I had one question from Instant Zen.
All right, sir.
I
think this book should be entitled Waking Up in the Present, Instant Zen, because this is the important part. And Zen is not, but you know, if you're trying to sell a book to, I could imagine a marketing department saying, no, we want instant Zen. We want it to be instant. We want immediate gratification. That's what sells books. But Waking Up in the Present, I think, is a nice title. So go ahead. And this is a recommended book, by the way. Very short for you guys who don't like to read very much. It's the teachings of Foyan, a 12th century Chinese Zen master, which means he's a Chan master. So it's not even Zen, it's Chan. But, you know, marketing. All right, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's on page 40.
And by the way, we're going to be coming out with some YouTube versions of this. Page 40.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So in the third paragraph, in olden times, a certain ant asked a seeker,
"Oh, this is great."
From? The seeker replied, "The city."
Great question. In olden times, a certain old adept, which means a certain old master of sorts, in olden times, a certain old adept asked the seeker, "Where have you come from?" The seeker replied, "The city." The adept said, "Where are you now?" The seeker said, "The mountains." The adept said, "I have a question to ask you. If you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave." These are hermitages and places where all these monks and students, scholars got together. We don't have anything like that anymore, tragically. Now then, okay, if you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave. This is kind of a filtering question to see if he's suitable for this particular hermitage at this, or Zendo or something like that. We don't have a word for it. Whether he's suitable or not. It's not that hardcore, but in other ways it's more hardcore. Okay. Where have you just come from? The seeker replied, "The city." "Where are you now?" The seeker said, "The mountains." "I have a question to ask you. If you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave. Now then, when you left the city was lacking you. When you came to the mountains had you extra. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent. If you are an extra in the mountains, then there is something outside of mind." Okay, one more time. Now then, when you left the city was lacking you. When you came to the mountains had you extra. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent. If you are an extra in the mountains, then there is something outside of mind. Now, I'm going to give you one couple of words to focus on, or one phrase out of that to focus on. And that I lost it, but it's something about omnipresent. What does it say?
Yeah. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent.
The reality of mind, okay, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent?
Yeah, if you are absent in the city.
So I'm just going to draw your attention to that, highlight it, and then this koan should sit in your brain like a hot coal until it opens. And it's a work of art. Got it? Just highlight that.
The reality of mind.
If you're absent from the city, then the city's missing you. If you're here in the mountains or the country, they have you extra. What gives? So that's a perfect example of a beautiful koan. It's not that inaccessible. I've given it away, but you need to work with it. It's actually exquisite. And so maybe next time we talk or something like that, you can bring it up again. But at least work on it for at least a week or two until it opens. Right? It's like a Sufi joke. The Sufi jokes of Idris Shah are also very much like Zen koans, but you got to put some love into them, man. I mean, you got to sink your teeth into them, chew on them, bang those things up until they open. You'll see. Once you've opened one, you go, oh my God, I mean, there's others like this? It's amazing. It'll hit you all of a sudden. Boom. And the other thing is these things would wake people up, literally wake people up. All right? What do you have another question besides what does this mean? Do you have another question? What?
Yeah. What do they mean by reality of mind?
Reality of mind. What is real in this world? We've gone through the material. That's not going to hack it. So what is real in this world? Now remember, they can use mind in very different ways. I mean, back in those days, they didn't go consciousness, or subtle awareness, or they didn't have those problems. They didn't have that distinction. So instead of, maybe we could say awareness instead of mind, or substitute awareness and a substitute consciousness and see what happens, because you don't know what they mean by mind, right? But you know what they mean by reality. Yeah. Reality is reality. You can't reduce it. Reality is not a product of something else. It's not a product of something else. Reality is not an epiphenomenon. Reality is not a, what's the other word they use when they don't understand something? Let's say you're doing something, you got a whole system, and then something else arises. What's that called? Starts with an E. It'll come to me.
Epiphany.
Not epiphenomenon. They call it emergent.
Okay.
Which is another word for saying, I haven't thought about it enough, and I'm not looking at it from the right perspective. So if you look at waves in the ocean, you have to be at a certain scale. Because if you're looking at molecules, you're not going to see any waves, right?
Yeah.
And if you're looking from the moon, you're also not going to see any waves. So many things, like so many things that we call emergent, like the waves, okay, are really just errors in level of resolution. Keep that. That's a very good thing to know, by the way. If anybody ever says emergent to you, you go, no, dude, change your point of view, change the level of resolution. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
like missing forest for the tree if we go too deep.
Very,
And
very, very good. Yeah, if you're looking for forest, you're going to miss trees. If you're looking at trees, you're going to miss forest. It's not that anything's emergent or not. So let's get back to reality of mind. So reality is not an epiphenomenon. It's not a... God, I just said it. It's not emergent. It's not created by something else. Reality is reality. It's the real deal. Correct? Now,
it's
what
the
is
way
mind? What
which
could
I
mind
think
mean? What could mind mean?
in this case, I was thinking mind is something that generates thoughts, but mind
Well, that's a verb.
could be
You're describing it by what it does.
yeah,
And plus you don't know that, but what else could it mean? I mean, a ChatGPT can generate thoughts. Right?
yeah.
So what else could mind mean? The reality of mind. We should have a you know, the little song that they play in those. It's not a quiz, but yeah, just think about it. What could reality of mind mean? It's not thoughts. I'll give you that.
Reality of mind. It's like you post that question, right? What is real? Like
What?
someone in my awareness, what is real from my awareness perspective?
No, not from your awareness, but what is okay? The question at hand is the reality of mind, and let's stay on that. No. So what
So
is
there
the
are two
reality
parts,
of mind?
reality and mind.
Pardon me?
So there are two parts, reality and mind.
No, it says
Mind.
reality of mind.
Oh, whose mind? I think this
Well, let's
is
put it in the
directed
koan.
to
Let's
the
put it back in the koan. Who's he speaking to?
the seeker. So in that case, the reality of the seeker's mind.
Okay. Reality of mind. Don't you see that this is the foundational question? What is the reality of mind? What is reality? And what is mind? Now, remember, mind is being used the way it was used in the 12th century. What are some synonyms for mind in the 12th century? What are modern synonyms for mind in the 12th century? 11th, 12th centuries? I'll give you a hint. Consciousness, awareness.
Yeah.
Those are sometimes synonymous. You got to think. So now let's look at this. Now rephrase the question. Instead
What
of
is the consciousness of
no,
mind?
it
What
says
is
the
awareness
reality
mind?
of the reality of mind. Now substitute.
The reality of awareness.
There you go. Or the reality of consciousness.
The only thing that I can think of about
Now
reality
reread
of
the koan.
awareness,
Now read the active part of the koan.
if you are absent in the city, the reality of awareness is not universally omnipresent. And
Omnipresent. If you're absent in the city, awareness is not omnipresent. But go on to the next one.
if you are an extra in the mountains, there is something outside of awareness.
Yeah. So this is what, okay. Now you have to take this. You have everything you need. The only thing blocking you is your mind. I mean, your cognition. Just work with this.
Yeah.
I think Foyan talks about this iron ball, this hot, red hot iron ball in your skull. You got to solve this. Now, earlier you were talking about what should I do? I don't spend as much time on video games. I don't spend as much time on YouTube. And I'm working at work and I'm working at Dharma, but I still have this free time. What should I do? What you should do is solve this koan. While you're walking, while you're eating, while you're at the gym, while you're doing yoga, while you're showering, before you go to bed, in your sleep. Seriously. You could wake up and the answer will be right there. I'm kind of jealous because it's a lot of fun when it finally does open. Okay, sir?
Yeah.
I may have helped you too much. Which is not a loving thing to do, right? Because it robs you of the power somewhat. But I think we're okay. It's always a balance. Yeah. Okay, sir.
Just one question. I think one. In the instant Zen itself, there is the page 26, I believe. The poem.
Feelings of frogs may be shed, but the idea of eggplant remains. If you would be free of the idea of eggplant, strike the evening chime at noon.
I think people may not know about the background though, so a page earlier help.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to that. Oh, this is great. May I read this one?
Yeah.
This should be its own little section or its own little YouTube, I think. Just a general introduction, okay? And then we'll stop. Generally speaking, practical application of Zen requires detachment from thoughts. This method, by the way, it doesn't say no thoughts, it says detachment from thoughts. This method of Zen saves the most energy. It just requires you to detach from emotional thoughts and understand that there is nothing concrete in the realms of desire, form, and formlessness, the triplex world, right? Only then can you apply Zen practically. If you try and practice it otherwise, it will seem bitterly painful by comparison. Now, a couple of things. You suffer from painful thoughts because you're attached to them and you follow them and you believe them and you think they're real and it's hard for you to just watch them come and go. But you need to do that with bad thoughts, with good thoughts, with neutral thoughts, right? Just watch them come and go. Don't fight them. Don't wash blood with blood. Okay? And gradually they'll just dissipate. Now, it's not going to be 100% right away. Because the Buddha, the way the universe works, it's trying to bring you home. So it will continue to teach you what you need to know. All right, here we go. Once there was a disciplinarian monk who had kept the precepts all his life. A disciplinarian monk. Forgive me. Once there was a disciplinarian monk who had kept the precepts all his life. As he was walking one night, he stepped on something that squished, which he imagined to be a frog, a mother frog laden with eggs. Mortified at the thought of having killed a pregnant frog, when the monk went to sleep that night, he dreamed that hundreds of frogs came to him demanding his life. He was utterly terrified. So mortified of the thought of having killed a pregnant frog at night, walking in the dark, the monk went to sleep that night and dreamt that hundreds of frogs were coming to him demanding his life, and he was utterly terrified. Okay, come morning, the monk went to look for the frog he had squashed and found that it had only been an overripe eggplant. So what he thought was a frog was an overripe eggplant. At that moment, the monk's perplexities abruptly ceased. Realizing there is nothing concrete in the world, for the first time he was really able to apply it practically in life. And this is Foyan. Now I ask you, when he stepped on it by night, was it a frog or an eggplant? If it was a frog, yet when he looked at dawn, it was an eggplant. If it was an eggplant, yet there were frogs demanding his life the night before. Can you decide? I'll try to decide for you. Feelings of frogs may be shed, but the idea of eggplant remains. If you would be free of the idea of eggplant, strike the evening chime at noon. Wake up is what he's saying. The evening chime at noon is the one way of describing it. It's very accurate. You could also talk about see the stars at noon, or you know, watch the nighttime sky light up at noon. It means waking up. So, but here you can see it's all spelled out. It's like handed to you. And so this man, what he's describing is something that could happen in anybody's life. And it itself is a koan. And the story is a koan. And the impulse, the intent is to help people wake up. And so when this guy realized, hey, wait a minute, all I suffered, you know, it's like someone who suffers because they're afraid they're going to die of some horrible disease. Right? And then one day they realize that what they thought was cancer all over their body was really freckles. Okay? Or they you know, they thought they had some horrible GI cancer, you know, of the gut, of the colon, and they were gonna, you know, oh my God, I've got cancer of the colon, I'm gonna die, and oh, it hurts so much, oh no, I'm gonna die. And they did that for months and months and months, years and years and years, and then they realized they were just constipated. One day they just like, whew, and they wake up, boom.
So in the
That's why they
poem, it basically says, I would need to be free of the idea of freckles or the constipation, as well as you put it in your example.
My metaphor, it wasn't an example.
Yeah.
So, but let's hear the question again. And I'm not a Zen master. I'm very, very far from it. These guys are like, woo. There's a reason that they're still singing to us, you know, what is it, 1,000 years later?
So this is another meta question that I have. Like, should I analyze these things more, or I don't know? Maybe that's what I can do. That's all. Analyze
them, contemplate them, meditate them, stomp on them, light them on fire, try and dissolve them in water, pour acid on them. Do anything you can do. Just Get the thing open. But this one's pretty clear, straightforward, is it not? So which is real in this story, the frogs or the eggplant?
Frogs are definitely not real. It's just thoughts.
Why do you say that?
But that would also be saying my dreams are not real.
All right, well then let's leave him and let's go to Taoism, and let's go to Chang Tzu, who fell asleep in a garden one day, and thought. Pardon me. Go ahead.
The butterfly one.
Yeah, and he dreamt he was a butterfly, or maybe he dreamt he was a butterfly, and he just enjoyed the flowers and the garden, the grasses and all that. But then he wasn't sure whether he was a man dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was a man. Same structure. Now, which are you?
The awareness that's seeing this life of butterfly and the life of the man.
Okay, good. Now, can that awareness die?
No.
Very good, very good. Now
my reasoning was, if I were to die and if I think that awareness dies, how can awareness be aware of non-awareness? I don't know.
How can awareness be aware of non-awareness? But first, my question was, when you go back to your other koan and they talk about the reality of mind, you may have a chance of understanding that story. Remember, Koan?
Yeah.
So, if what you're saying is true, that awareness isn't born and doesn't die, have you ever heard of a beginning to awareness? Are children born without awareness? Does the fetus have awareness? Of course it does. I mean, we can show it. We can, they kick in the womb and you can play them music and they remember and they listen to voices. We know that the fetus is aware. So before the fetus is born, it has awareness. There's no question about that by any stretch of any criteria. Correct? Have you got that? I kind of like the idea we can use science too. They didn't have the kind of science. They didn't have the kind of slick science that we've got now. I mean, they didn't know that you could, measure the awareness of a fetus. But we can use those things now. So my question to you is, do you have any evidence at all that awareness is created or destroyed?
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to explore a bit. And I thought, if awareness is destroyed, then how would I know as an awareness? Because if awareness is destroyed, basically means there is non-awareness. Then my current awareness wouldn't be able to be aware of non-awareness.
All right, I'm just going to say this, and you need to figure it out. You think your awareness belongs to you. No. It belongs to us, my friend. You and I are actually the same thing. And we're having a dream conversation.
What do you mean by that?
We're having a dream conversation.
I always have the same problem, like that there is no the subject and observer distinction and all, like different forms of the same thing, what we're discussing right now.
So can you think of an object without a subject?
It all depends on...
Answer the question. Is there an object without a subject?
It depends on what the definition of subject and object are.
Okay.
Like...
What is define object for me? Define object for me then.
In terms of English sentences or sentences in general, it's
in like English.
Sentence. So in English, a sentence will usually have a subject that performs something on an object.
Okay, that's
Something
that's
along those
English.
lines.
That's syntax, or that's I don't know what that is. That's grammar or something. I don't know. Let's talk reality. Is there a subject without an object? It's a simple question.
That's not possible because whenever a subject is trying to observe an object, then they are intrinsically observing themselves as well.
Okay,
Like
we're taking a
everything's
moment in
connected
time.
for them.
We're taking a moment in time. Now,
Okay.
can there be a subject without an object?
Can there be a subject without an object? In a weird semantic way,
Forget
if
semantics.
we are defining,
Forget semantics. Don't wiggle around. Just think straight. You don't have to get clever. An object requires a subject. Otherwise, it's not an object.
yeah, yeah, but that's just wordplay, right? That's what I feel.
I'm sorry.
The
What?
definition of object. That's what. Isn't that just wordplay? Like
What
you
is
are
this? Is
using
this
the
wordplay?
definition.
Is this wordplay? If I
No,
hit you on the head with it, it's
straight.
not wordplay, right? That's why the Zen masters would do that. Is this wordplay?
No.
Okay. Is this an object?
Yes.
Now, in this moment, if we were to remove all subjectivity from this object, would it be an object? There were no subjects around anywhere. Would it be an object?
No.
Okay, good.
No. It, yeah.
So basically, what you're learning is that subject and object are interdependent. Later, you'll learn that the whole subject-object thing is a loser's game. That this is all mind. All of it. What else could it be? But, okay, I'm using the word mind, but I could also say consciousness, or awareness, or God, or truth, or beauty, or love. And it really is love. That you need to experience. And you really should. Seriously. There's nothing else worth doing. So, any other questions before we stop? But look, so now go back to these things. Go back to Changsu, the man and the butterfly. Go to the frogs and the eggplant. And go to the reality of mind. And, if you're missing from the city and you're extra in the country, what gives, right? And remember, they're testing they're both testing, probing, and hoping to stimulate the student to see if they can wake up. Any of these three could wake you up,
Okay, I'll do that.
but they've got to burn like a coal in your heart. They got to burn in here. They've got to they call it wonder in some of the text. I could see why they didn't want to use the word curiosity, because curiosity is trivial and oftentimes ridiculous. But wonder and need to know and intent, those are all first cousins. Okay, sir? Anything else before we stop?
Yes. I know.
All right. You should be applying the energy here, not me, right? And so,
Yes.
with regard to your earlier things about, well, what should I be doing, or what can I do? I've got all this time, and I don't want to go back to video games or stupid YouTubes. There are a lot of educational YouTubes, by the way. Do you have a subscription?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, okay, what should I be doing in addition to that in my job? This is what I would be doing if I were you, because why would you want a life of suffering when you can have a life of bliss? Seriously. I don't understand why anybody chooses suffering and all that. I just don't understand it. Okay, sir.
Yes.
Take good care. Sayonara.